හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Thursday, the 12th of October 2023. Paradigm shift. President proposes adoption of ASEAN philosophy for Asian dominance with special attention to regional ports. Debt death. China's Exim Bank agrees in principle to restructure $4.2 billion debt. Landslide update. Heavy showers to continue. Early landslide warnings extended for 8 districts.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to today's edition of AdaDerana's English News First at 9. This is Jonathan Benedict. Let's delve right into our top story for the evening. President Ranil Wickremesinghe proposed that Sri Lanka should embrace the paradigm shift that accompanies the geopolitics and nuances of the South Asian region by ASEAN countries and optimize the strengths of the locale by paying special attention to ports. The president underpinned the potential for Asian dominance by highlighting the intricate significance of shipping routes which are reliant on regional ports for trade and how they could be leveraged for supremacy globally. The president made these comments while addressing the 11th edition of the Galle Dialogue International Maritime Conference.
The 11th edition of the Galle Dialogue International Maritime Conference aimed at strengthening regional maritime cooperation and the formulation of a global strategy to face common challenges in the maritime domain commenced today under the theme Emerging New Order in the Indian Ocean. Delivering the keynote address at the conference, President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the economic significance of the Indian Ocean is predicted on development shifting from East Asia and Asia Pacific to Indian Ocean, India, Bangladesh and Africa.
So we've got these definitions of the Indian Ocean. So politically, we are different from the Asia Pacific or the other construct. We are political. We think politically. We all have different views on the Ukraine war. But if you look at all the countries that didn't want to get involved, the vast majority are from around the Indian Ocean. So you see that there is a political thinking here, which must be taken in its context and not outside that. It's not merely one of security planners. Do I move from this area to that to the Indian Ocean? Secondly, the economic aspects. The developments that has taken place in East Asia and Asia Pacific will now move into the Indian Ocean. Similarly, on the other hand, you find the Gulf states. So you find two big economic centers coming up in the Indian Ocean immediately, followed by Africa. By 2050, Africa is going to be booming, then it becomes a center. It doesn't mean that Asia Pacific ceases to be, but there'll be three main centers maybe. So then we have identity of its own in trading. So if you look at it that way, when Africa and all are trading, what is Sri Lanka's position? We have the strategic location. So if we develop our ports, we have Colombo as the big port that being regional logistic hub. We are developing Trincomalee with India so that as the Eastern Indian Ocean develops, we are also benefiting from it. And we have Hambantota. There are many ports that have been set up here in the Indian Ocean by the Chinese, by the Japanese, by others. So if you link up Hambantota with Africa, that's another commercial port. Those of us who know civilization and trade look at the long term. Those who don't look at it and ask, what on earth is this port funded by Chinese doing here in Hambantota? It obviously is a military base. Ports are important. Remember that this part of the world will get control of the ports. With Dubai port that is coming in, world ports, you're taking a large number. Others are also getting in. If Sri Lanka can get a few ports, we'll do that. We have to be in the game. What about the airlines? Basically, airlines are dominated by UAE and Qatar. And Qatar and them are also getting into airports. So you can see a new paradigm that is developing. It's a new game that's on. In Asia, we are moving around everywhere. Does it mean that we reject Indo-Pacific? No, there is interconnectivity between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. The global geopolitics will decide what stands we take, what we do. But we have to ensure one thing, that freedom on navigation and undersea cables prevail in the Indian Ocean. So this is why we must take the initiative now to go ahead.
Meanwhile, addressing the Galle Dialogue, President of the India Foundation, Dr. Ram Madhav, addressed current global transformation, noting the emergence of a new world order following the pandemic.
Indian Ocean region has its own strength. The region is home to 35% of the world's population and accounts for 20% of world's GDP. 1/3 of the world's bulk cargo traffic and 80% of the world's oil shipments travel through these waters. It produces 40% of the world's offshore petroleum reserves. And it faces its own set of challenges too. Indian Ocean region is turning into the focal point of strategic competition and power politics. The challenges faced by the region are also a microcosm of the multi-dimensional challenges faced by the rest of the world, like climate change, the unregulated rise of critical and emerging technologies, disruption of supply chains, and growing deficits in energy and food security. In addition, many countries in the region have been victims of debt traps and resulting crumbling of economies. Some critical questions to ask at this crucial juncture include: 1. Who would be deciding the destiny of this region? The regional powers or the global powers? 2. Can an institutional framework be developed in the region for facilitating management and governance of the regional order in the ensuing decades? And 3. Lastly, but most importantly, can the region stay out of the evolving big power rivalry without being forced into taking sides?
Sri Lanka's Ministry of Finance confirms that it has reached an agreement on the key principles and indicative terms of a debt treatment with the Export-Import Bank or Exim Bank of China. In a press release yesterday, the Ministry of Finance announced that the agreement in principle covers approximately $4.2 billion of outstanding debt owed by Sri Lanka to China.
On Tuesday, China's Foreign Ministry announced that the Export-Import Bank of China reached a preliminary agreement with Sri Lanka last month on the disposal of China-related debt. Announcing the agreement officially, Sri Lanka's Ministry of Finance said the agreement constitutes a key step towards restoring Sri Lanka's long-term debt sustainability and will pave the way towards prompt economic recovery. The indicative terms agreed on are expected to provide the necessary fiscal space for Sri Lanka to implement its ambitious reform agenda. Sri Lanka commended the engagement and continuous support of China's Exim Bank in reaching this agreement in principle, which demonstrates a mutual commitment in line with goal and objective of restoring public debt sustainability consistent with the IMF-supported program. Sri Lankan authorities are hopeful that this agreement will provide an anchor to their ongoing engagement with the official creditor committee and commercial creditors, including the bondholders. The ministry said that the agreement should also facilitate approval by the IMF Executive Board of the first review of the IMF-supported program in the coming weeks, allowing for the next tranche of IMF financing of about $334 million to be disbursed. Over the next few weeks, the Sri Lankan authorities and China Exim Bank will be actively working on formalizing and implementing the agreed parameters of debt treatment.
In other news, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, concluding a meeting with the visiting UAE Minister of State of Economic and Trade Affairs of the Foreign Ministry, proposed setting up a joint economic council with the UAE to promote trade and investment cooperation between the two countries. Meanwhile, the UAE minister agreed that official negotiations for finalizing cooperation of an economic partnership agreement for enhancing economic ties should commence soon.
A meeting between Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and visiting UAE Minister of State of Economic and Trade Affairs of the Foreign Ministry, Ahmad Ali Al-Saik, was held at the Temple Trees in Colombo yesterday. During the meeting, the UAE minister agreed that official negotiations for finalizing cooperation of economic partnership agreements for enhancing economic ties should commence urgently, as there is immense potential in the trade, energy, hospitality and tourism spheres, as well as for increasing investments in renewable energy projects in Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena also proposed setting up a joint economic council with the United Arab Emirates to promote trade and investment cooperation between the two countries. The Prime Minister highlighted that the UAE has the opportunities now to invest in new sectors such as agriculture, as new economic zones have been set up for the growth of food crops for exports. The Premier also appreciated the assistance provided by the UAE to Sri Lanka for the development work, as well as for providing employment to nearly 300,000 Sri Lankan workers. The UAE Minister meanwhile noted that expatriate Sri Lankan workers are an asset for the economies of both the countries.
Following directives by President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Sri Lankan Embassy in Israel and relevant government departments have collaboratively initiated a special program aimed at offering the utmost possible assistance to the Sri Lankan community living in Israel. Via the program, special hotlines have been announced to Sri Lankans to convey their needs or obtain essential information. The Sri Lankan ambassador in Israel, Nimal Bandara, said that the embassy has received $30,000 for the welfare support of the Sri Lankan community in Israel. The conflict between Israel and Hamas militants following the provoked assault of Hamas has so far claimed the lives of over 2,700 people with a massive loss of property. Gaza's humanitarian crisis deepened today with warnings that people are at risk of starvation as Israel continues airstrikes following the ban of essential supplies to the enclave in response to Hamas's brutal terror attacks, while Israel's government formed an emergency war cabinet and ordered hospitals to prepare for an expected escalation of violence. The decades-old conflict between Israelis and Palestinians entered uncharted territory this week after Israel suffered its worst attack by Palestinian militants since its establishment 75 years ago. According to an update from the health ministry in the Palestinian territory, the death toll in Gaza following airstrikes by Israeli forces has risen to over 1,400. Concurrently, the number of people killed in Israel because of the provoked Hamas assault has now risen to at least 1,300 people. The total number of people injured is over 6,000. Militant Hamas gunmen killed more than 1,200 people, wounding thousands more in a coordinated rampage through farms and communities where they also took as many as 150 hostages. The United Nations, meanwhile, unequivocally condemned attacks on civilians in Israel and Gaza in a statement on Thursday, which also focused on the worsening plight of people in Gaza. Israel has ordered a complete siege on the enclave, including the halting of supplies of electricity, food, water and fuel.
I call for the immediate release of all Israeli hostages held in Gaza. UN staff are working around the clock to support the people of Gaza. Some of my colleagues have already paid the ultimate price.
Meanwhile, speaking to AdaDerana English, Sri Lankan ambassador in Israel, Nimal Bandara, commented on the situation of Sri Lankans in Israel.
Yesterday, we had an opportunity to visit the surrounding area of the Gaza as invitation extended by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. On the same time, I was trying to check the bodies available around the two hospitals, and also I was trying to communicate with the doctors who help for the Sri Lankan caregiver who admitted to hospital. Unfortunately, we were there nearly 2 hours and heavy shell attack and the rocket came around surrounding area. Therefore, military and foreign ministry officials informed us to go back to Tel Aviv due to prevailing situation there. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as government of Israel announced that they will relocate the houses surrounding area of the Gaza inside Israel. Those areas, around 20 Sri Lankan caregivers are working and it is a good relief for them. Already 2 people inform us they already got the new houses in the Elat area. Therefore, I think within next 2-3 weeks, all the houses they will relocate in the other part of the country. Meanwhile, government of Sri Lanka announced the Ministry of Foreign Affairs granted $20,000 for relief measures conducted by the embassy for the welfare of the Sri Lankan caregivers in Israel. Also, the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment granted $10,000 altogether $30,000 we received for welfare activities conducted by the embassy in Tel Aviv. And if there is any emergency situation, we would like to facilitate for our people in mainly Tel Aviv, Jerusalem and Haifa area.
Following directives by President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Sri Lankan embassy in Israel and relevant government departments have collaboratively initiated a special program aimed at offering the utmost possible assistance to the Sri Lankan community living in Israel. According to the President's media division, Sri Lankans working or residing in Israel for various purposes now have access to channels for directly informing Sri Lankan authorities in case of life-threatening situations or related difficulties. Sri Lankans can convey their needs to obtain essential information by reaching out through 011 796 6396 via mobile, 076 746 3391 via WhatsApp, or an email to opscnga@gmail.com. That's opscenga@gmail.com. We'll be back with more news after the short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. A suspect involved in the murder of a former police inspector was reportedly killed in a shootout with the police special task force this morning. The suspect was killed as he was reportedly ambushed by police teams in a coordinated attack who chased down the suspect wanted for the murder of the police inspector. Meanwhile, a T-56 firearm, which was reportedly missing from the Karandenia army camp, has been discovered from a house in Batapola. With that, here are some updates from around the island in brief.
The suspect involved in the killing of a former police inspector in the Karagoda area in Galle reportedly died in a shootout with the police special task force. The former police inspector was murdered previously on the 9th of October, following which multiple police teams commenced investigations into the incident. Based on information received by the police special task force, they arrived at a house in Mitiagoda where the suspect was believed to be hiding. The suspect had opened fire which led to a shootout where the shooter reportedly succumbed to his injuries. In the Karandini army camp, meanwhile, a T-56 firearm which was reported missing was recovered from a house in Batapola. According to the police, a soldier attached to the Karandini army camp was placed under arrest in connection with the incident. The police suspect that the firearm in question was stolen with the intention of renting it out for a crime. In Pamunugama, a severed head of a man was discovered on the Parana Ambalama beach this morning. According to the police, the severed head had been found based on information received this morning, but added that it had decomposed beyond recognition. Further investigations into the incident are being carried out by the Pamunugama police. In the meantime, the Supreme Court has ordered 16 state universities across the island to submit a report pertaining to incidents of ragging reported at their respective institutions over the last 3 years and the measures taken to prevent them. The reports are to be submitted before the 10th of November 2023. The order was issued following a fundamental rights petition filed by Pasidu Harshana De Silva, seeking a ruling that his fundamental human rights were violated after he sustained critical injuries as a first-year student of the Sri Jayawarathapura University in an incident involving a group of senior students who had thrown a large tyre at him in 2020.
As heavy monsoons continue to affect many areas, including the Matara district, the Department of Meteorology said that showers or thunder showers are expected to continue in several parts of the country tomorrow. Things took a rather destructive turn when multiple landslides were reported last night, causing damage, injuries and inconvenience. Ironically, 7 Defence Force personnel who came on site to review the damage in one incident of a landslide were unfortunately injured and subsequently admitted to hospital for treatment.
Amidst the prevailing monsoons, a landslide was reported from the 102-mile post between Imaduwa and Pinaduwa on the Southern Expressway last night. As Defence Force personnel arrived at the site to inspect the traffic disruption caused by the landslide, another amount of sand collapsed, injuring 7 of the personnel. The injured were admitted to the Karapiti hospital for treatment. Following the incident, 4 lanes were completely blocked while traffic from Imaduwa to Pinaduwa came to a complete halt. Officials from the Road Development Authority and the National Building Research Organisation arrived at the scene last night itself and immediately took necessary measures to remove trees which had fallen on the road. Despite continued heavy rains in the area, police and army personnel started removing mounds of soil which had fallen on the road.
මෙතන ඇත්තටම කලුත් යම්කිසි නායෑමේ සලකුණු ඇතිවෙච්ච ප්‍රදේශයක්. කෙසේ නමුත් යම්කිසි අවදානමක් තියෙන හින්දා දැඩි පරීක්ෂාකාරී තත්ත්වයක් ඇත්තේ කරන්න ඕන. මොකද මම හිතන්නේ තාමත් වතුර පාර එන මට්ටමක් තියෙනවා.
ආර්ථික ගොඩනැගිලි පරිශන ආයතනයේ මේ මාර්ගය ගමනාගමන සුදුසුයි කියලා කිව්වට පස්සේ අපි බොහෝ වෙලාවට අපේක්ෂා කරනවා අද අවම වශයෙන් එක මන්තිරුවක් හෝ මේක විවෘත කිරීමට මේ තවදුරටත් සමහර කොටස් නායෑමේ ප්‍රවණතාවයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වාද පරීක්ෂා කරලා තමයි අපි මේ සම්බන්ධව තීරණයක් ගැනීමට සූදානම් වෙන්නේ. ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශයට තියෙන ව්‍යාපෘතියක් තියෙනවා මේ වගේ නායෑම් බලක්වීම සඳහා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා මේ වගේ සැක සහිත ස්ථාන මෙම ව්‍යාපෘතියට ඇතුළත් කරලා දීර්ඝකාලීනව ඒ ව්‍යාපෘතිය අර්ථේ මේකට විසඳුමක් ලබා දෙන්න.
In Madola, meanwhile, another landslide occurred in close proximity of the 134th mile post of the Colombo-Badulla main road. Traffic on the road was disrupted while residents together with the police worked towards clearing one lane to open up avenues for traffic to pass through. In Ratmalgas Alla, a part of the residence along with a wall completely collapsed, disrupting traffic on the Kinigama-Walasbedda road. Meanwhile, steps were taken to cut down dangerous trees on Anand Kumaraswamy Mawati in Colombo 3 by the Colombo Municipal Council today. Several areas in the country continue to experience heavy rainfall, which resulted in several lowlands in the Gaul and Mathura districts being flooded. Due to torrential rain since yesterday, all sluice gates of the Varapitiya reservoir were opened by 3 feet each. Lowlands in Walasmulla, Beliath and Tangol were flooded due to this. Due to heavy rainfall in the Norton Bridge catchment areas, the Vimalasulendra reservoir had its sluice gates open since last afternoon. Meanwhile, one sluice gate of the Upper Kothmale Dam was also opened. In the meantime, the dead body of a 10-year-old boy who was missing after being washed away in a flood in Gahala was recovered this morning. Meanwhile, taking the prevailing inclement weather into consideration, the National Building Research Organisation extended early landslide warnings issued to 8 districts. Accordingly, early landslide warnings issued to areas in the Badulla, Gaul, Hambantota, Kalutara, Kegal, Mathura, Ratnapura and Nureli districts were extended.
Warning level 2 alert amber warning was issued to Haputala and Haldumulla Divisional Secretary in Badulla district, Yakalamulla, Ambalangoda, Gaul Pogravets, Tavalama, Baddegama, Akmimana, LPT, Imaduva, Nagoda, Nelua, Bopi Podala and Niagama Divisional Secretary in Gaul district, Katuvana and Walasmulla Divisional Secretary in Hamantura district, Matugam and Valalavita Divisional Secretary in Kaltara district, Ruanwella, Darnegala, Deyovita and Yatiantota Divisional Secretary in Kegol district, Akuresa, Pitabedara, Hakmana, Kirinda Puhulvella, Mulatiana, Tihagoda, Malimbada, Velipitiya, Paskoda, Kotapala, Aturalia, Mathura Pogravets and Kamurupitiya Division Secretary in Mathura district, Ahliagoda, Kalavana, Ratnapura, Alapata and Kuruvita Division Secretary in Ratnapura district. Warning level 1 watch yellow warning was issued to Ambagamu Koli Divisional Secretary in Noreli district, Bandaravilla Divisional Secretary in Badula district, Biliath and Okevilla Divisional Secretary in Hambantula district, Ingiria, Agalavatta, Palindanura, Dodangoda and Bulasingala Divisional Secretary Division in Kaltara district, Kegol and Bulatkopitia Divisional Secretary in Kegol district, Nivitigala, Imbulpe, Balangoda, Palmadulla, Opanaika, Valigapola, Kiriala, Ayagama, Godakavela, Kolonna and Kahavatta Divisional Secretary in Ratnapura district.
As per the Met Department's weather forecast for tomorrow, showers or thunder showers are expected in most parts of the island during the afternoon leading up to nightfall. Further, heavy rainfall reaching up to 75 mm is likely at certain places in the over, central and eastern provinces.
In business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange closed in green today, aided by financial and banking sector stocks after 3 days of consecutive reds. The Colombo Stock Exchange All-Share Price Index closed 1.34% higher to end at 10,818.41 points. The index was pushed up by financial and banking sector stocks. The S&P SL20 meanwhile climbed by 1.43% to settle at 3,040.57 points heading into Friday. Market turnover ended at 999 million rupees. The diversified financial sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the capital goods sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers, offloading stocks worth 3.6 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, purchasing shares worth 3.6 million rupees. With that, let's look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies as the day progressed. Welcome back. In the latest report issued by the Fitch rating agency, Sri Lanka's Ceylon Electricity Board's national long-term rating and the rating on CEB's senior unsecured debentures has been upgraded to BB+ from B with a stable outlook. Meanwhile, Cargill Ceylon confirms that it expects to hold 49% in a joint venture company to be formed with 2 dairy companies from India. With that, let's take a look at the corporate sector news for today.
Fitch Ratings has upgraded Ceylon Electricity Board's national long-term rating and the rating of CEB's senior unsecured debentures to BB+ from B with a stable outlook. The rating agency said that the upgrade follows the 28th of September 2023 upgrade of the Sri Lankan sovereign's long-term local currency issuer default rating to CCC- from restricted default. According to Fitch, the CEB's ratings are equalized with that of its parent, the Sri Lankan sovereign, based on the agency's assessment of a very strong likelihood of a state support under the government-related entities' rating criteria. CEB is Sri Lanka's monopoly electricity transmitter and distributor and accounts for around 75% of the country's power generation. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Cargill's PLC said it expects to hold 49% in a joint venture company to be formed with two dairy companies in India. In a stock exchange filing, the Cargill said a shareholder agreement was signed yesterday with the National Dairy Development Board of India and the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation Limited. The joint venture with Cargill's came from a joint declaration of intent signed in July 2023 between the Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairy of the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying of India, and the Ministry of Agriculture of Sri Lanka to cooperate in animal husbandry and dairy. A statement from the President's media office said that the planned joint venture, where an agreement was signed when India's visiting Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar met President Ranil Wickremesinghe in Colombo, will work with 200,000 local farmers to boost domestic milk production. In the meantime, ALFT Packaging, the packaging solutions provider, has won gold in the category Wide Bed Flexo at the Asian Packaging Excellence Awards 2023 held in Bangkok recently. Notably, ALFT Packaging was the only Sri Lankan company to receive an award. The annual Asian Packaging Excellence Awards appreciates excellence, innovation and sustainability, recognizing best packaging printers across the Asian region. Meanwhile, the Colombo Land and Development Company said that Pathirage Shake Pereira was appointed as a non-executive director of the company with effect from 10th of October 2023. Pereira has prior experience in the telecommunications industry, encompassing production processes for mechanical and electrical fabrications in New Zealand. Currently, Pereira plays a role in the management and business development of George Stewart Solutions, a company that offers industrial solutions in Sri Lanka.
That's all the news I have for you. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Have a blessed Friday ahead. Good night.